Hello and welcome to The Real Hernando, a podcast created to highlight our amazing local community and small businesses here in Hernando, Mississippi. I am your host, Derek, and this episode is brought to you by Shelby Rowe Productions. Today, I am talking with Chris Camp from Motivate with Coach Camp. Chris's goal is to inspire and motivate others through his personal experience and knowledge, using philosophies and positivity, providing a positive voice for others to draw hope and direction. Chris provides counseling, life coaching, and advising. Chris, thanks for being here today.
Thank you for having me, Mr.
Well,
Derek.
you're actually having me at your house, so I need to thank you for that.
This is true, yeah.
Thanks for being on the podcast.
Absolutely. It's an honor to be here.
Sure.
It's an honor to be a part of this. And more than anything, it's an honor to represent Hernando. So thank you for having me on this podcast.
Absolutely. So we have a mutual friend, Mr. Robert Carter.
Yes.
And he told me all about you. And I looked at your stuff and I was like, oh man, let's get this guy on here. Because you're the first of the kind to be on this podcast where you're a coach. You have a coaching program, which we'll get into. Mm-hmm. And you're very much all about Hernando. So let's do this. Why not have you on this podcast and spread the word and try to help promote you too. So anyone watching this, if you look at his hat and shirt, that's what's up.
Logo.
Logo City.
Small plug.
Yeah, that's
yes,
right.
Sir. Yeah.
And, we'll get into where we can get more information on you and your websites and all that stuff. But so before we dig into your personal story, upbringing, and we want to learn more about who Chris Camp is, let's give a quick, elevator pitch, if you will, of, what you do, what your coaching company is, and then we can go in further detail on the back end here to really dive in on your story and how you became what you are now. But just real quick, what is it that you do?
Okay, so the story behind, or the small story of what we do as far as the speaking career part of it is positive voice. Mm-hmm. That's the bottom line, is a positive voice. It kind of started pretty honest, pretty easy. I've always been that person that kind of encouraged others. I've been a real coach in athletics for a long time. And it was an easy transition whenever it was brought to me and I was approached about the idea of starting to do this more on a platform to help people in all walks of life. And I thought about it and I said, the truth is I do like to coach and I do like to see positive outcomes. And for me, I've always said this for as long as I can remember. My success comes through other people's success. So when I can play a role, however small that is, in someone else succeeding at their goals, that's whenever actually I find the true joy, which I have some stories that I can share about how that really came to light for me. But I started looking back, and as early as my 6, 7, 8 years old days growing up in the neighborhood, I was always that kid in the neighborhood that always tried to get the kids together, play games. And, I wanted to be the one that at the end of the day, I wanted you to go home feeling good. So if we were playing a game, a sport, I wanted you to succeed. That's just, that's part of my personality.
And where was that happening? So let's
Walls, Mississippi.
Okay, great.
Walls,
so now let's go back. Let's have our Barbara Walters moment here.
Okay.
The life of Chris Camp. No,
it's not that exciting, but we'll go there.
So you grew up in Walls.
Twin Lakes, Mississippi, small little subdivision. Anyone in Hernando that's been here any length of time, very familiar with Walls. It's just up the road. And, the thing about where I grew up was it was during a time and it was at a place where it was still a bit of country. So it wasn't real incorporated at that time. And you could just go outside I'm sure you've heard this said before, it's true. But as long as your parents could holler for you and you could hear them, just make sure you're home by the street lights when they come on. And it was awesome. So
I grew up the same way.
Yeah, it's a free way of life, so to speak. And I wouldn't change it for anything.
So did you have any extracurricular activities through school? Were you into sports?
Baseball was my number one. Okay. I was a small kid, really kind of skinny, and football definitely was not my gig. I got crushed a few times, and I said, you know what? I'm probably not meant for that one. I wasn't fast enough to get away from the big guys. So baseball is what I settled into. Love baseball. And it's funny enough that I feel like probably anybody that plays any sport does this. They will use analogies from the sport that they're familiar with to life. And it's so true how it plays, hand in hand. And I would have to say that baseball definitely was a big part of the structure of who I was and what I was becoming. And it was more than just playing a game. It was being a teammate. It was just all the things that are encompassed with playing any youth sport for that matter.
Yeah, because I already met you and we talked, I know some about your story. And you were telling me that early on, like you just said a few minutes ago, hanging out in the neighborhood with your friends, you were always kind of the one leading and coming up with games, things to do. So I would gather sports was a big factor in
Big
that.
part.
Right?
I didn't ask the kids if they wanted to play. I went to the kid, told them what they were about to play, said, hey, we're going to play baseball today. And they were always cool with that. But then I'd have to go ask the parents, of course. If the parents let them out, I'm like, come on, little Timmy, we're going to play baseball, baby. But one thing I found was a lot of people want somebody to make decisions. And I was never afraid to make decisions. But that said, it wasn't like if I said, all right, let's go play baseball, and somebody said, oh, we want to go build a fort today. Man, we go build a fort, But it was just the leadership quality that I had to try to create moments, to have fun, to explore, to be adventurous. I mean, I grew up during the time when Goonies had just come out. So
classic.
I mean, you're gonna follow those leads, right? Indiana Jones, Star Wars. So yeah, it was all a part of the adventure.
I was a Husky kid, and the truffle shuffle, man. I was the king of it.
Yeah, hey, look, that kid there is he was a big part of everybody's childhood. If you grew up during that time, no doubt about it.
Loved that movie,
great.
So I feel like we grew up in the same kind of era here, I definitely out my bike, gone. And I would never let my 13-year-old just disappear on a bike anymore. Like it's just different vibe. Especially, for many years I was in Memphis. Absolutely not.
Anytime you're in an inner city anywhere, it's a little bit more height. You got just more population and everything.
It's just different. I would get on my bike in the morning. I wouldn't come home until that afternoon, Sometimes I wouldn't check in and get in trouble, but but so you get through school, I want to try to build that bridge to where you're at now and what you're doing. And I do know your story about being a fireman for a while, but what was your college? Was there a college era for you?
Yeah, so if I may, I'm just going to take you all the way back to the front and just kind of walk it forward really quick. Because ultimately, that's the best way to get the full picture of me, right?
Let's go.
So I don't know how exciting this is if someone's listening to this on a podcast, but for me, it definitely tells the story of why I am who I am today.
That's what we're here for.
No doubt about it.
That's what we're here for.
Going all the way back to school, elementary school, junior high, high school. Never saw school as being super important as far as the academic side of things. I was okay. I was okay at it. I was a social person. I'm just going to be straightforward honest with you, right? So I was all about friends, creating networking, to have a part of this group, that group, love sports. But the academic thing, I just didn't apply myself. It wasn't that I wasn't smart. I just wasn't interested, right? But I told myself in high school, I said, when you get to college, you have to turn it on. Because in college, whatever grades you make and whatever degree you end up with may play a big role in what you will become in life. So I kind of had a little bit of forethought to that. And coming out of high school, I didn't have a game plan, which kind of is par for the course for me. I don't always have a game plan, but I always have confidence, which I don't know if that's a false sense of confidence, but I had it. And there was a lot of friends that doubted my ability to go to college. And I said, well, I'm going to Northwest. And, if I have to get student loans, I will. But maybe I can get a scholarship. Understand this, I had like a solid C average coming out of high school. So probably not really. About the second or third day in class, my personality's always been what it is. I'm outgoing, I'm friendly, I'm easy to remember, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. And a friend of mine from high school, which was a cheerleader, said, hey, you should come try out for the cheer team. We're going co-ed. And I was like, absolutely not. And I don't know anything about cheering, first of all. Secondly, dudes don't cheer. I was, small town. We didn't have cheerleaders in high school. And she's like, well, it's got a full scholarship. I was like, scholarship? And I thought I'd be able to get to hang out with the girls. All right, what time is tryouts? So one thing led to another, and I was the only dude on the team. So I ended up having a microphone, and I just let them in cheers, and I acted like myself, which was usually dancing to a good beat or whatever it took. For 2 years, I had a scholarship, and I got my associate's degree in criminal justice. thought I was going to be a police officer, decided I would go in the military, finish up my bachelor's degree, be an officer in the military. So whenever I came out, I'd have all this experience. I'd have my bachelor's degree, whatever, detective, FBI, you name it. I was going to go that route. Go in the military, which, by the way, a lot of my friends said, you'll never make it in the military because they knew my personality. They knew that I was kind of on the edge of, at times, being too much in trouble. Not because of a mischievous, but just silly, really silly stuff. And went into the military, 4 years, fine. Got another associate's degree in production management because I ended up being a database analyst instead. Come out of that, I think, okay, I don't really like that line of work, so I'm going to find something else. 2 weeks before I got out of the military, my life changed. Now, what I want you to understand about all this was there was always an element of public service. I was always big into helping other people. This is from a young age. I wanted to help other people. I always enjoyed being a positive person and having that effect on others. In the military, the service to others before yourself was really driven home. So when I got out, I wanted to do something in that line. And police work did seem like a logical direction. But 2 weeks before I got out, a guy moved in next to me that was an Air Force firefighter. And he started telling me, I was like, that's an awesome career path. And I like medical. So that's what I'm going to do. I get out. The people in the Air Force are like, you don't know anything about firefighting? To mock me, they got me some firefighter trucks. And I said, okay, well.
This is a common theme, people doubting you.
Doubt all the time.
I know your story, so I understand that.
Yeah, but you know what, though? The doubt could be a little bit valid to a person that doesn't know my heart. Mm-hmm. They just see a lot of the exterior, the outgoing part of me.
You're just a class clown. You don't take things seriously.
Don't take things too serious. Yeah. And I can see where a person would think, well, this person's probably not going to be able to do what it takes to be successful here or to be successful there. But the thing was, I never doubted myself. Yeah. I knew who I was. And I said, you know what, I'm going to be a firefighter. And I got out and I came home and I joined the Walls Fire Department. And after the first call, I was hooked. I was absolutely hooked. I said, this is definitely what I want to do. And I said, now I need to figure out how to become a paramedic. And it took a while. I wanted to get on Memphis. I wanted to be a part of the big city. It took 3 years before I got hired by Memphis. But in the meantime, I worked in Mississippi, got up to my paramedic license, and I continued to press from there. And once I got on the Memphis Fire Department, I was a part of the Special Ops Rescue Team, Tennessee Task Force. I just loved all aspects of it. Anything that was the next level is what I was trying to go to. Mm-hmm. So that driven part of me, right? I was constantly being driven to do the next thing in my career path. And in that moment of doing those things, I also wanted to lead by example in other areas. So if I may, to take you into the athletic side of things for me, because I've been an athlete growing up, my dad had a heart attack at 54, and I was not obese, but I wasn't in shape. And I said, you know what? I'm going to start running. I'm going to run 5Ks. Maybe I'll do a half marathon one day. And then in 2005, I tried my first marathon. And I said, you know what? That was really horrible. I'm never going to do that again. But it was kind of like childbirth, maybe. So like a year later, I said, this is something I actually think maybe I should try again. So I did another one. And then at that point, I said, okay, this is a goal. 50 states, 50 marathons. So I started down that path. And what I started getting again was people being amazed that I was doing these things. Folks that had never ran a half marathon or marathon are looking at me and they're like, you ran 26.2 miles? And they just couldn't understand. They couldn't wrap their head around it. And the whole time I'm just like trying to draw them in that I can do this, you can do this. Mm-hmm. And then of course it led to me doing an Ironman, which we could talk about later if you want, but it was just a progression. And then once I ended up retiring from the Memphis Fire Department because of shoulder injuries, I didn't want to quit that service to others. And that's when I got into teaching.
What year is this?
That was 2016. And I go to Southwest within a month after being retired and start teaching in the paramedic program, AMTs, EMTs.
Oh, nice.
And it was another opportunity to give back and to be a servant. And it was actually in the classroom, me talking to students, trying to inspire them, trying to motivate them, because it's tough sometimes getting to school, doing your job, having a family. It was tough. And I wanted to kind of get them excited about the career. And so that led to inspirational speeches. Yeah. And at some point, the students were the ones that kept pressing me and said, man, you need to be on the stage. You need to spread this to the world. You need to share this talent. And I didn't see it as a talent. I just saw it as me being me, right? Mm-hmm. But as I stopped and I thought back over my years, and I started thinking about how it was whenever coming out of high school, nobody thought I would go to college. And then now all of a sudden I have 3 associate's degree, a bachelor's degree, a master's degree. And then when I ran my first half marathon, nobody thought I could finish that. Now I've ran 28 marathons. Then when I go after the Ironman, you know, I do the 2.4, the 112, and the 26.2 mile. And I'm just like, I am in a lot of ways the version of somebody I would have wanted to see growing up, of no one thinks they can, but they did. Mm-hmm. If they can, so can I.
Was that the part of the driving force, having people doubt you?
I think it was early on. Funny enough, it was definitely fuel to prove others wrong. And ironically, when you have someone believe in you, suddenly it's a lot scarier. When you start having people believe in what you can do, now all of a sudden you start doubting yourself.
Because that pressure comes on now.
Exactly.
Yeah. You have to live up to them.
I have to prove them right instead of proving them wrong. And it was a different mindset. And that's kind of where the Coach Camp thing came in. And I was just like, you know, I don't think I'm good enough for this. And we spoke about it briefly, but you have the doubts that you're capable of doing that. Why would it be me? Why should it be me? And the very beginning of this, and some of the friends that may see this, they may remember that I put it out on Facebook, kind of like a small little test to see if anybody would even be interested. Because I'll be honest with you, I don't know. I don't think I thought somebody would be interested in watching a video or coming to listen to me speak, just because I didn't feel like I was qualified.
Imposter syndrome.
The imposter syndrome. Mm-hmm. I didn't feel like I was qualified. And so when I put a little feeler out, I got a lot of response about, this is what you were meant to do. And then I started thinking about it, and I'm like, maybe this is a talent that I'm having trouble agreeing with, but maybe it's something that's needed, because there's so much negativity. And it's something that I've spoke to many times, that it's so easy to be negative. It's so difficult to be positive. And I think that's just in the walk of life, because there's so much negativity around us. And in today's society, with your phone being right here, with everything on the media, it's so easy to get caught up in those polarizing conversations. And I'm going to say I was guilty of it for a while, especially when social media first came out, and I saw how unhealthy it was. And I said, I want to be the opposite of this. I want to do something better than this. I want to have at least a legacy that I tried to leave the world a little better than it was when I finally spend my last day here.
For whatever reason, human nature, we are attracted to negativity more, train wrecks. And I always joke, you know, a post with Chris Camp saving a cat from a tree on his, you know, fire truck ladder. I'll probably get 20 likes, right?
Right.
But you start spewing, you know, conspiracy theories or negative stuff about politics, it's going to explode.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm done trying to figure out why, because I'm just as guilty. You know, I'm rubbernecking on the highway when I see an accident or what's going on over there. You know, I want to know. We're kind of attracted to that, but without some discipline, social media can just be a storm, right? Which is kind of why this podcast exists. But then this is why Chris Camp went. You know, Coach Camp exists as well. So through that experience, you know, and I liked how you noticed it in when you became a teacher, because in a way, without even realizing it, now you're leading, but you might have gone into it thinking that you're just teaching. You're teaching the A's and B's and C's, what people need to know, the X, Y, Z's. But at what point did you start feeling like you were comfortable in just the leading? I know the kids were giving you some feedback, but was there a point where you're like, man, I really like talking about motivation over a specific thing to learn? Yeah.
Funny enough, so after I put out the feeler to get an idea if people would be interested in this, which I got a decent amount of feedback, which was enough for me to say, okay, at least I'll give it a shot. I had to do some real hard self-reflection. And I had to really think about, what would that message sound like? What kind of person do I need to be? What would make it relevant? Because the one thing I didn't want to come across as was pretentious. I had to be real.
Going to be genuine.
I had to be genuine. I had to be transparent. And the word that kept coming back to me, which really to this day is, it's a challenge. I had to allow myself to be vulnerable. because growing up in the environment that I had grown up in, even all the way back to the days of the neighborhood, right? And the neighborhood kids, being in the military, being on a fire department, being on rescue teams, you have to have a certain sense of bravado. Even if it's false bravado, you have to make others feel confident that you can. In the face of bad, you have to be able to perform.
Yeah.
And so vulnerability is very difficult to come by, especially in the fire department.
Yeah, you're running to the fire.
You're running to the fire. You can't let somebody know that you're scared.
Because your teammate next to you needs that, you need to be working together. If you're afraid, then that person's going to start being afraid.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And then so it's the same thing in the military, these guys that have to go and face wartime and battles, they're scared.
Yeah.
They're scared, but they face that through the confidence in the people around them. Mm-hmm. And so I knew that I had to be vulnerable enough to allow me to be wrong at times, to state opinions with an understanding that it's sometimes just my opinion. And it's okay if somebody doesn't want to agree with that. It's very difficult, I think, in human nature to allow yourself to second guess your feelings, beliefs, ethics, and I knew that would be a big part of Coach Camp, is being able to explore tough topics, to have a positive voice when basically everything around you suggests that you shouldn't. And I just had to allow myself to be real all the time. And that was a difficult task for me to do. I'm not saying I was ever a fake person, but I will say that sometimes maybe I would shy away from a situation, or I just wouldn't show all my cards because I didn't want to come across as being weak or vulnerable. And I had to allow that to happen. And so since I've done that, I got to tell you, the response has been amazing. So many people have contacted me.
It's because you're human.
Behind the scenes,
right?
Exactly. I'm not a robot. I'm just, I'm just a regular person. So many people have texted me, sent me messages, and a lot of times I can't explain to you how, other than, I'm a firm believer in God. And I would feel like sometimes I was just being led by God. This is the message you need to put out this week. And I had my ideas on a completely different message. And I would think about whatever that messaging was, and I would say, okay, how does this relate to me? What situations can I use as an example? And I would put it out. And I'm not kidding. So many times a person would contact me and be like, I can't believe you talked about this. That was exactly what I needed. And I'm just like, God, that's powerful. That is so powerful and meaningful.
It's coming from your heart too. That's what vulnerability is, right? You don't want a robot. I wouldn't want to work with a coach that was perfect.
Yep.
You're going to see through that. So this guy's fake, or this guy's, I want someone I can relate to. Everyone wants someone they can relate to. And you know what we all can relate to? Brokenness. We're all broken in some ways. We have our weak moments, but we also have our egos, which is why it's hard to let go and open up. So people that might struggle with opening up can look at you and be like, he can open up, Chris can open up, he's showing his vulnerability, maybe I can too. So there's that part of it too.
Yeah, that's part of the hope, is that, being relatable, it'll make someone feel a little more comfortable being themselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah, be comfortable in your own skin, that's what I say.
It's key. I'm still working on that.
It's tough. I'm not saying it's easy for me, but it is needed. And I think whenever you reach that, at least to a certain level of being comfortable being yourself, life does feel a little easier to manage. You don't feel like you have to hide stuff as much.
You get more confidence. So then you can start making decisions on things that you always wanted to try, right? And then you hit that wall of imposter syndrome, but you just fight through it.
Right.
No, I can do this. And man, when you finally do something that works, man, it's a good feeling, isn't it?
Yeah, for me, I'm telling you, so many times it's just been me leading by example. I'm big into leadership. That's the center focus of the show I've got coming up in August, is about leadership, because there's it seems to be a strong lack of leadership, strong, healthy leadership in America in general. I'm not just talking about politics, I'm talking about across the board. It doesn't matter where you are. If you're on a ball field, which is part of why I'm really looking forward to the show, because I have 4 different areas that leadership plays roles, and there's dozens and dozens, but we're going to hit on 4 different areas. And a big part of leadership is leading by example and being accountable. And, I've just seen through what I've been able to do with just the small amount of time that I've been doing this, how many folks have just kind of stepped up that have followed my lead, that maybe they had wanted to be a leader in a certain area, that are working close hand in hand with me, whether it be on a ball field or in a classroom. And they've started to realize, yeah, there's something they can bring to the table. And it does come through a mindset and an approach, and it's crucial.
So let's talk about this show. Now, typically in podcasting, you want to stay away from sensitive dates because someone could be watching or listening to this a year from when we record this. So sometimes dates cannot make much sense.
Sure.
But you and I strategically decided when we want to publish this, we're recording this in June, full disclosure. But as people are watching this, it's early August or listening, if they're listening it close to publish time. Mm-hmm. And part of this is we're promoting this big event that you're putting on at the Desoto Family Theater, correct?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about it and promote it. Let people know what it is, why it exists, what to expect, how to get information on it, but then what led up to it.
Okay.
But let's give the what, why, how breakdown of what this show's going to be.
So I'll start with the idea of where it came from, the epiphany moment, if you will.
Okay.
So when I got into this line and started doing my thing, and I was just putting it out there, I wanted to be involved. I didn't know how to get gigs to speak. I have no idea what I'm doing, right? So I'm just starting from scratch with nothing. I just knew I wanted to have an impact. I knew I wanted to do something meaningful. So I started making the videos on social media, and then that did lead to me doing a few things. I was able to do the award ceremony for the Memphis Fire Department. There was a few other little small things that I went and spoke at and whatnot. And I'm decorating my Christmas tree this past year in 2021. And I'm sitting there putting the ornaments on. And one of the things that my wife and I do is we travel all over America and we run races and we buy ornaments. And I'm looking at this one that we have. It's like a personal motorcycle. I'm looking at it. I'm just like thinking about Evel Knievel all of a sudden. And Evel Knievel, if you're not familiar with this guy, that was a stunt guy. He started his own stunt show from nothing. No one knew him. But then he started self-promoting and just putting his name out there and just going and creating his own show. And it was like a light bulb went on. I said, you are sitting here, Coach Camp, telling others to chase their dreams while you're sitting in the back seat waiting for someone else to drive you to yours. Get up front and start driving, Camp. This is me talking to myself. So if you're in my living room, it's a really weird moment. But I'm just like, that's the thing. I'm just going to make my own show. Let's do that. How do I do that? So I start making some phone calls, and I go up to the Landers Center and find out that you could rent the venue for an evening. I said, that's the thing. I'm just gonna do my own show. So I rented out the Desoto Family Theater in January. So for this coming August the 13th, I'm putting on my first Coach Camp show. It's Coach Camp's Tools for Leadership. It's myself, 3 other speakers, and I have an MC. They are all very qualified in what they do. My cousin Nikki, she's a John Maxwell recipient, and she's phenomenal in the styles of leadership that she's going to be talking on. Hunter Brown, which is a well-known person in DeSoto County, that he's on lots of restaurants. He's done tons of speaking gigs. He's going to be speaking to the business side of leadership. I have another friend of mine, John Mishkowitz, which is he's related into the EMS, fire, nursing aspect of things. So he's going to speak to leadership there. And then myself, and I'm going to speak to athletics and the leadership stylings. And then my MC is Jim Logan, which I've known him for 20-something years. He's just a phenomenal person, and he's going to be speaking in between the speakers, as an MC would do. But the whole idea was just that, get something started. Just do something.
Right.
Just do something. And so that's what I've done. And hopefully August 13th, 6 p.m. People want to show up. You're going to be able to get tickets. We're working with Ticketmaster. They should be up on my website soon, motivatewithcoachcamp.com. And they're $25 for individual tickets. Groups of 6 or more, they're $20 each. And I think the seating's about 500. So I'm anticipating those tickets to be up, since we are in June. They'll be up for sale long before this comes out. But if you haven't got your tickets yet, it's not too late.
Not too late.
Probably.
So how long will the night be in total?
Approximately 2 hours.
2 hours, about half hour per speaker. Mm-hmm. Excellent.
Yeah,
so you each speaker's kind of bringing in a different outlook or a different angle of coaching, right?
Coaching leadership.
Leadership. Mm-hmm. Are they bringing their kind of stories?
I'm anticipating that. This is the one other thing too about what I'm planning on doing. So Coach Camp the Industry, we'll talk about that just briefly in a second. But whenever I started recruiting these guys, it was very specific. In other words, I look for specific types of people to speak on certain topics that I knew they were going to be great at. And that was the number one thing, because they asked me, how do we want this to feel? What do you want us to sound like? Because we've had a few meetings, and I want them to be themselves. I said, no script. You do exactly how you do it. Nothing from me. Just be yourself, be honest, and be dynamic. And so that's part of I think the uniqueness to the show is that there's not a script. People are very independent to their thought. It is some opinion based, but it is also some coaching based too. Like, this is areas of leadership that I've used. This is how I've seen it work, etc. It's going to be something to be gained for anyone and everyone that shows up. And whether, two of the speakers hit on something for you, and maybe the other two don't, or whatever, you're going to pick up something from this show, I promise. Now, the beauty of this is, the hope for this is that beyond this show, this becomes a regular thing for me with shows. And what I'm trying to do right now is build a speaker base. And whenever I started the Coach Camp business, I was told by the folks that were, so I don't know if you've ever been down this road, but there'll be like a group of folks that come in for me to do my logo, to build the brand, et cetera. So it was like the whole branding thing. And everybody kept pushing me towards, who's your audience? Who's your audience? And the more I thought about it, I said, my audience could be everybody.
I've been there. Trust me.
And I was like, this message could go to anyone, because it's not just leadership. I want to speak to PTSD. I want to speak to mental health awareness. I want to speak to addictions. I have something to offer in so many areas from so much of my experience. I mean, I've lost friends to addiction. I've lost friends to suicide. I mean, my experiences, my understanding, and a lot of the people that I'm friends with are really experts in certain areas, but not all the areas. So the goal for Coach Camp is to build speaking teams. And let's just say a school or a church or a business, they contact me on my website and they're like, hey, we would like 3 speakers to come out on this date to speak to finance. I know my guys that can speak to finance, so I'll look them up. I'll let them know, hey, look, this is the date, this is the gig. Are you interested? And then we can build teams from there, and we can serve so many more facets that way. So that's the dream. That's the big dream anyways.
Almost like soldiers, right?
Almost like soldiers, building an amazing network of speakers that are very qualified, that can bring a message and be very diverse, in thought and approach, because I think that's really where you start to learn. If everybody talks on the same wavelength of what you're used to, you're not going to pick up a lot. You need to explore areas and ideas and approaches in a way you never thought of. And that's part of what my team will be able to bring.
You have the perfect last name for this, because when I think camp, I think groups, right? You go to a camp.
Yeah, I never thought about it that way.
You go to a camp, you camp with your family, but then you go to a campground and it's a bunch of families camping, and you're creating a camp. They want speakers on finance, like you said. Well, you're going to create a camp of people. So Coach Camp is just so perfect.
That's true. I never thought about it that way. It's pretty good.
I could be your brand identity guy.
I tell you what, I'm open.
I don't know what you paid them, but
too much, Brandy. I don't know.
But I've been there too, with my business, and who's your audience, and target. And there's some, validity in that. But it also can it can make things a little more cluttered and confused in your brain. You feel like you're forced to pick one lane. And again, there's benefits in that too. But the fact that you are building teams around you, so you can provide safely the whole spectrum of leadership, because you're bringing people in that are stronger in finance than you are. You could probably speak to it too.
Not like some of my friends.
Right.
That's what they do, yeah.
So you don't have to be the expert on one. You can be, dangerous enough in all areas to be able to cover the whole thing, and then bring
Curator
specialists. Yeah,
sure.
And then curator, right? Yeah. Like what's the phrase? Master at none. What is it? What am I looking for?
The jack of all trades, master of none.
Right.
Yeah. And I've explored all those different, philosophies and thought processes about it's better to be really focused and intense in one area so you can master that to the greatest level. And that is true for a lot of people in a lot of areas. But for what I was trying to do, And plus, I've always thought of myself as being a little bit of an oddball anyways. And so I'm not going to follow a script, right? I'm not going to follow one single path of way everybody else does something. For me, I think that's part of entrepreneurship as well, is
Absolutely.
being innovative, being able to pivot, being able to adjust. I feel like that's something that I have really worked hard on being able to be good at in my lifetime. And you had to be that way as a paramedic. You could go into a call with a certain mindset of this is how we mitigate, and everything change in a moment, and you better be able to shift gears. And so for my speaking career, I didn't want to see it be any different than that. And I feel like we can be really successful. I think the key is going to be all of my speakers be on the same page with authenticity, not to come in trying to be someone they're not. Be honest, be fair, be vulnerable, all those things that I do hold dear. And I feel like if you do that, people are going to relate, and the messaging is going to be great. And really, that's the idea, is just to leave people with a great message, give them something else to think about. At the end of the day, let's steer clear of some of the negativity that's out there, because man, there's tons of it.
Isn't there? You know, you can still give boundaries to your speakers. You know, it's values. You know, we follow these 5 values, and if you stay within those parameters, this is going to be awesome.
Yeah.
You know, and that way you get everyone on board. This is more marketing, sales 101 type of stuff. But that's the way I see how you can give boundaries on a group. These are our values.
The tenets that you have to live by, 100%.
Right. You know,
I agree with that.
You know, no politics. You know, stuff like that. You know, because there's plenty of platforms for that, right?
Sure.
And that's how I feel about this podcast and this platform, The Real Hernando. You know, I don't go there because there's plenty of other places to go.
Yeah.
There's plenty of other platforms where you can speak your mind on whatever you want, and that's good. Go for it. We need those kinds of platforms too. But it's pretty sad when you really have to work hard to build positive platforms because it's such a need for it, right?
Hey, to your point, I mean, positivity doesn't sell as well as negativity, right?
Nope.
So the dramatic shows that are on TV, you know, I don't have to go down a list of them. We all know the reality TV shows that are out there, but those that have the drama involved constantly.
True crime series.
Those are the ones that get a lot of viewership, right?
Yeah, and that's why they keep pumping those out.
But I think that was one thing that was really important to me when I started this was the process was not to be famous. The process was not to be wealthy. The process was to share my passion and to have an impact. And I've stayed true to that. And I've had some friends that they've tried to give me advice otherwise. They were like, man, you can still make a lot of money and do this. I said, yeah, hey, maybe one day I will make money on this thing. And ultimately, it would be nice to have an income that is sustainable, that I can do more and see more, because honestly, it takes funds. But that wasn't the driving force. That's a byproduct. The product had to be about my passion. The product had to be about the positive impact I was trying to have. And when I stay true to that, I think the rest will come.
Absolutely. That's your value. That's where your values are coming from. And the good things will come, you know. And there's no shame in making some money either. You know,
No.
It's a service you're providing, and there's no shame in that either at all.
You know, I've started listening to a little while back, listening to other speakers, because I wanted to see their styles. I didn't want to mimic anybody, but I wanted to see how did other people sound. So really, be honest with you, I hadn't listened to motivational speaking before I started going down this road. And Eric Thomas, which he's pretty well known, he said something in one of his talks to a high school, I believe it was, that it was like that would be me if I were doing this. This was back before I really saw myself going down this path very much. But I was listening to it, and I said, he said, he didn't matter if he was making $300,000 on a gig or $30 on a gig. He was going to give them everything he had every single time, 100%. And I said, absolutely. That's the point. That's the point. It doesn't matter about the other stuff. The other stuff is fine, but your message has to be most important. And I was like, that's exactly what I would do if that was me.
That's the foundation. So when did Coach Camp become a branded entity?
So maybe March of 2021.
Right in the beginning of shutdown.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I'm thinking 2020.
2020 had kind of come, and that was where some of the idea had started.
Sure, yeah.
And then in 2021, it was the beginning of March, if I'm remembering correctly. And I remember stopping my wife. We were at the house here, and I just said, hey, I've really been thinking about this a lot. I really want to pursue, I really want to try my hand at speaking. And what do you think about that? And my wife is so calm, cool, and collected. She's just like, whatever you want to do. I mean, she's like, yeah, whatever. What that's next, okay, you know. And that was whenever I put out my first messaging in April. And then I went and sat down with the Inari group, and we started going through stuff. Coach Camp probably became the logo and everything somewhere around June of last year. So it's been about 1 year.
About 1 year. And we're ramping up to this big, again, event in Desoto Family Theater. Would this be the biggest thing that you've done?
Oh, hands down.
Yeah.
I mean, this is like, I'm not going to say that all my eggs are in this basket, but I will say that this is a culmination of the beginning of time, right? So when I started this whole process, that was a big goal. But let's just say it's a flop. Doesn't stop me.
You tried it.
Doesn't stop me. I'm going to go again. I'm going to go again, and I'm not going to stop. And I think that's the point that I would want anyone to pick up from all this is if you have a dream and a passion and you know that you can be impactful and it's a talent of yours, you know, just adjust, learn from that moment of failure. And, you know, I failed at a lot of stuff too. We talked about a bunch of the successes, but along the road there's probably been 3 times as many failures at something. It just didn't stop me. You know, I just used that as fuel for the next time.
And try not to internalize it. It's not,
Exactly.
If it fails, it doesn't mean it's 100% your fault.
And it doesn't mean it's a failure unless I want to quit.
Yeah.
Right. So just in a moment of setback, I never looked at it as a failure. I looked at it as a learning moment, honestly. And to the point of the Ironman, which, you know, just to touch on my wife, when she had come up short her first time after being inspired from my moment, it wasn't a failure. It was a learning moment. She came back and crushed it the next year. So I think that's what I would want anybody to pick up from me. If you're going to listen to anything I say, just know that yes, you can, if you want it bad enough, and don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to be vulnerable. Get out there and give it a shot. Cannonball your dreams. I did a whole speech on that. Cannonball your dreams. Jump in. I wanted horses. I got horses. I didn't know anything about horses. I got horses. I learned a lot about horses when I had the horses.
You were forced to.
So, I mean, that's the idea, man. In life, you only get this one shot. The grains of sand are falling out.
Yeah.
Take advantage of them.
Failing forward.
Failing forward.
Yeah. I'm still doing it. I'm in a constant forward motion. And that's just how it is. Well, look, man, this has been very enlightening, and I'm glad that we're sharing your story.
Thank you for giving me an opportunity.
Is there anything we missed? Any last words you'd like to?
My last words, my departing words to Hernando in particular is just this. You know, we moved down here about 16 years ago from the Walls area, and I absolutely love the city. I love the city. My daughter is, you know, big into the sports. She was on the cheer team. My boys grew up here. And if anything, I want to represent Hernando well. So the idea that I'm a part of this show with you, I really appreciate you giving me this opportunity. I just want Hernandoians to know that it's not about Coach Camp. It's about this community. It's about a positive message. And it's about helping others believe what's possible for themselves. And each and every person out there that's hearing this podcast, they should know that they can bring some of that to the table. Not everybody can get on a stage and talk. That's not their thing. I get it. Not everybody can be a coach on a softball team or a baseball team. I get it. But you can have a positive impact to another person's life each and every day you wake up. It does take a mental focus, and it does take self-discipline. But with the right approach, the right heart, anything can be possible. So,
amen to that.
Yep.
You know, absolutely. And that's why I love Hernando too. But this isn't about me. This is about you. And I have a challenge for people listening and watching this, how they can make a difference. And that's by sharing this episode.
Absolutely. Share this episode.
So
Motivate with Coach Camp. Share the episode. Go to my website.
Yeah, exactly.
Check out your other podcast.
Well,
You're
yeah,
doing great things.
So this is, before we say goodbye, this is what I always tell the audience and talk to the audience about, is how they can help support us. Because this is a full circle thing. Support you, support me, and supporting you, supporting me, and vice versa. And that's by sharing this episode. So go to therealhernando.com, scroll down the homepage, and you'll see Coach Camp's picture on there. Click on it, and it opens up your page. And there they'll be able to listen to you, watch you, and even read the episode. It's transcribed.
Nice.
Go ahead and grab that URL link, and just give it to anyone, family, friends, email, throw it on your Facebook page. just share it as much as you can, because that's going to help Coach Camp and his mission and what he's trying to do. And then in turn, it helps the podcast, The Real Hernando, grow bigger and bigger, which then will help other guests get bigger and bigger. It's full circle, right?
I love it.
Also, we post clips and other social media promotional assets on our socials, which is Facebook and Instagram at The Real Hernando. We're on TikTok now, Chris.
Oh,
We've entered the land of short attention span theater.
I'm trying to do better at that. I have the TikTok and the Instagram. I just don't know that I'm that good at it.
Well, that's why I have great people on my team.
Yeah, I need better team members to help me
Right.
with that part, I guess.
So go there and share away. Share our posts on your feeds, on your stories. That's just the best thing that anyone can do if they want to support what they're listening and watching right now. You can find our podcast on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, all the major platforms. And then you can even sign up for our email on our website, where anytime a new episode is published, you get a direct email telling you that it's up and going. So that's the best thing anyone can do to help this movement right here, Chris. I couldn't thank you enough for doing this.
Thank you, sir.
I appreciate you.
Yeah, man.
And on the side here, I hope you and I get to work together. And
I hope so.
In other ways.
I think we will. Yeah. Hey, this train's just now leaving the station. And there's plenty of room for everybody to get on board.
That's right. More the merrier, right?
More the merrier, baby.
Cool.
Join the camp.
That's right.
Coach Camp.